In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the default queries that WordPress can use. Now, we've just finished looking at all the different sample loops, so make sure that you go back to that if you're not sure about the loop in WordPress. Anyway, there's four things that we're going to look at. First off is running a loop without even having a query at all. Then we're going to look at query post, WP query, and get posts. Now, I am not an expert, total expert at WordPress, so you really do want to make sure that you go and read the WordPress codex to find out any more information that you can about these different queries if you have other questions. So going on though, the first one is the default loop. This one says PHP if have post, while have post, get the post, and then you're able to show the title and the content of that post, and then you end the loop with end while, and end if ends the conditional statement. Now we're on a page because this is page default queries, so this is just going to get the content of the page that we're currently on, and that's going to be very different than some of these other ones that we're going to look at. The next one is using query posts. Now I've separated all my PHP out into separate tags just because it's easier to read, but a lot of times you see all of this stuff kind of mixed in with each other, meaning that you would take out this end tag and you would take out this beginning PHP tag, and all of that would run on together. Anyway, this is the basic query post without actually having any true arguments in here. We just say WP query post, and then we put some arguments in here, and we'll put these arguments in later. I've just put a default so that it runs. Now the next thing that's in here is the same exact loop that we used before. However, the results are going to be very different this time, and the reason why is because query posts actually queries the database for posts, not for the current page that we're on. So this way I'm going to actually output any posts that I have. And the posts that I currently have in this system are 3 event posts and 3 news posts. So to take a look at what this actually looks like, you'll see there is the query post without any queries. I'm able to get all of the different posts that are actually in WordPress, whereas the default loop only shows me the page content of the current page that I'm on, which is very, very different. So let me go back to the code. So the next thing to be aware of is that anytime you run any sort of query, you do want to end that query and reset it afterwards. Now the 3 ways to do it. There's WP reset query, there's WP reset post data, and there's also rewind posts. They work differently. The reset query wipes off the query that you've just done so that you can start over and make a brand new query. The WP reset post data, I believe, gets rid of the data for the post that you've brought back, but it keeps your query. I don't know exactly. And the rewind post does keep your query, but it just rewinds all of the getting information from the database, so you can use the same query to output maybe a new loop of something. Maybe you want to separate your titles from your pictures on 2 different sides. So you could use that, rewind the post, and use the same query to get the exact same results and output 2 different loops. Anyway, the next one is WP query. Now WP query is also very powerful. You'll see it set up a little bit differently this time. The reason why is because oftentimes you see people create some sort of variable, and they set that variable to a query. Then they loop through those results. And you'll also see this time I've separated it so that I have my PHP, and instead of each line I have continued the PHP until I want to get out of it. So this is 5 lines of PHP, or yeah, something like that. Anyway, I have the query. I say let's have some arguments that are associated with it, and I say while the custom query has posts, let's go ahead and get that post, run the loop, and then it ends the loop with end while. Afterwards, I'm going to reset the query with post data, which from what I've heard is a pretty good way to reset after WP query. All right, the last one is using getPost. Now, getPost is a little bit different. This one has one thing that's really important to note, and that is the default post value is 5 unless you change it. So in here, I'm actually, instead of putting an array inside my WP query, it has to be an array. An array means more than one variable. So you'd have something in here, then another, and then another. Now, they're going to be done a special way, but hopefully you get from that. The array says basically more than one condition. So anyway, we say our arguments are going to be this array. We say that our last post is going to be a getPost function that uses these arguments, and then I say for each, and this is a little bit different than while. It says for each last post as post, let's get the post data and run the loop right here. And then we end with end for each. So that ends the loop of our results. Then when I'm done, maybe I want to reset the post data or reset the query altogether or just rewind the posts. So let's take a look at how this looks once again. The first one, you notice that we used query post with no arguments, and it gives me all 6 of my posts that I have. The WP query has no arguments, and it gives me all 6 posts. The getPost has no arguments, but it only outputs 5, and that's because that's the default for getPosts. So once again, these are the 3 different methods of doing queries. We're going to look at each one a little bit more in depth in the next set of tutorials.